Good afternoon and welcome to Jigsaw 11 to 16's updates for the 2025 RSHE guidance. We're hoping you're going to find it really useful this afternoon to find out what's changed and what documentation is available to support you with transitioning from the 2019 to 2026 guidance. If you just begin with, while we're waiting for everybody to arrive, if you could introduce yourself in the chat, that would be fantastic. So give people a bit of time just to do that initially. So, great stuff. Okay, so just to remind you, the session today is being recorded. I know some people might find that helpful for sharing this with other members of their team at school and also staff that are perhaps teaching the programme too. So yeah, this will be available for those schools that are Jigsaw schools. It will be available as a recording to come across to later on. Okay, right, we'll get started. I have got my colleague Eleni with me today. She is going to be monitoring the chat. I am obviously going to be presenting, so I won't be in a position to monitor the chat to begin with. But if you do have any questions, would really appreciate it if you maybe left those questions till near the end of today's presentation. Reason being, it may well be that your question gets answered throughout the webinar today. But yeah, of course, there'll be plenty of time at the end of today's webinar to answer any of those questions you might have. Yeah, please, if you could remain on mute throughout the session, that would also be really helpful. So thank you. Okay, so just to begin with, my name's Bethan Hall. I'm the 11 to 16 programme lead. I've been with Jigsaw for quite a while now, so I know the programme really well. And I've been part of the writing team and update team also. So if you have any specific questions, either today or if you go away and you have any questions that are regarding the programme, that you go away and you might have maybe some staff have quite questions after today, please do feel free to get in contact with school support. And they often do pass those through to myself to kind of directly liaise with teachers. So yeah, please do, feel free to get in contact at a later date if you find that useful. So just regarding today's focus, we're going to be having a look at, to begin with, what's actually changed in the programme. So we know that the 2019 guidance, our previous programme was in line with that. We have now got a new 2026 guidance, and schools are to be moving across from September to that guidance. And we have updated our entire programme in line with that guidance. But really, what does that look like? Which lessons have been changed, which lessons have been removed, and what can teachers expect from this new programme? So that's what we're going to be looking at to begin with. Following that, particularly for those that are perhaps PSHE leads in the school, we're going to be looking at what are the next steps. So how can we support teachers within your team and other members within the school and within the community, so parents and governors also, with those next steps and transition from the 2019 to 2026. So we're hoping that you're going to find today's session not overwhelming, because it is very much a step-by-step guide, and we have broken it down very well for you. But again, if you have any questions near the end of today's session, based on any of these areas, please do write them in the chat today. So in July last year, the DfE published some new RSHE guidance. It was very welcomed by us at Jigsaw. The 2019 guidance, whilst it was great to have that, we do know that the world that our young people are living in today, particularly at a secondary level, is particularly different to 2019, especially with the digital advances that are surrounding our young people. So we really welcome this new DfE guidance. In July and September, we released some webinars to really break that guidance down, and I'll highlight what has changed in the 2026 guidance. Those are recorded for our Jigsaw schools. So if you have, if you're in a position where you didn't manage to get along to those webinars, please do look on the portal. and we can, they'll be available there for you to maybe take a step backwards and really absorb that information. Now, in terms of where we're at today, we're going to be looking at what's changed in the Jigsaw scheme. So we have been working really hard since July to make sure all of the programme is up to date and in line with the new guidance. And we're going to be looking at what's changed and how to implement it. Now, what I would say is, even though the new programme is there and the new materials all that are there, and this is what we really see as a real period where we would expect PSHE leads and teachers to take some time to implement that and to be really familiar and confident in the delivery of that. So just because the content is there doesn't mean to say that straight away you should be teaching that. Or by all means, there may be lessons and content in there that you feel are really important to bring out and forward into this academic year, but there is absolutely no pressure to do so until September 2026. So schools really should be spending some time to review the content and make sure their policies are in line with the new guidance as well, and also making sure that they are consulting with governors and parents and teachers and staff amongst the school, ready for September 2026 when it becomes a statutory implementation. So this is where we're at in terms of our journey and what we're going to be looking at today. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this because in our September and July webinars, we have already looked at what is different in the 2026 guidance. And these are the main areas that we see really coming out of this new guidance. I'm just going to have a very, very brief look at this because for the benefit of those that weren't able to attend, these are the main themes that we see coming out. You may have heard of some of these in the media, and you may have read the guidance yourself and identified some of these areas. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier on, there's a real focus on enhanced digital safety. So again, all of our materials are in line with this new guidance, and we're going to be looking at, okay, we know what's in the 2026 guidance. Where is that information and where is that content within the scheme? So just to reassure, Jigsaw schools are actually teaching most of the content aligned in 2019 with the statutory expectations. So we actually did a comparison between the 2019 and 2026 to see what could be removed. It was very minimal. Most of the 2019 content has remained in the 2026 guidance. They've just actually added more to the guidance, I would say. So even if you are still, and really we would assume most schools are delivering the 2019 scheme, it is meeting most of the expectations still. So the same as in terms of our outline, when we're moving across to the new programme, the 6 puzzles remain the same, the sequence remains the same, still evidence informed and a whole school approach. Our emotional literacy and safeguarding is embedded throughout. And also, we have updated even the lessons that were from the 2019 that didn't need to be removed. We have updated and enhanced those. We get regular feedback from our schools, and we really, really welcome that in terms of what could we do to improve on our lessons. And we've taken on some of that feedback and use this as an opportunity to also enhance those lessons that didn't need to be updated or removed, but actually use it as a way to maybe make some of those lessons possibly more engaging, or looked at the way perhaps some information was displayed within some of the slides, and an opportunity to really enhance the entire programme. So when you log on the portal at the moment, you will see in the materials section all of the lessons displayed like this within a unit. So this is our Year 9 Dreams and Goals unit. At the top, you can see the 6 lessons that are from the 2019 guidance. And then below, with the ones with the banner on saying RSHE 2026, they are the lessons that are in line with the new 2026 guidance. It's really important you have the conversation with your staff that they, what the differences are between these two. And you very much make it very clear what you're expecting your teachers to be delivering now up until September. The puzzle maps and other supporting 2026 content is also being added and can be found within these areas too. So it's very important, again, I can't stress it enough, please do have that conversation with your staff. It's very important that, you know, teachers aren't moving across to the 2026 guidance until policies are in place and the consultation process has taken place and you're ready as a school, essentially. So with us having this transition period, we've made an area on the portal in the materials section called Get Ready for September 2026. Now, I'm going to be mentioning quite a few different documents today, and we have put all of these documents in this area to make it easier for schools to locate them. You know, putting them alongside the 2019 versions could become quite confusing for some schools, so we're hoping this will make things quite clear. And of course, when we then transition across to the 2026 guidance, these will become part of the main portal eventually. If you click on this button here, it will then take you to an area and you scroll down and it looks a bit like this. There is more to this page, but this is just a snippet of what you can see. And if you click on the purple sections there, or the purple text, they all link to the documents that are related to 2026 guidance. So all the documentation and mapping can be found within this particular area. And what I would say is keep a real close eye on this area because we're going to be adding to this gradually. Certainly within the next month, we expect to see this area grow quite quickly. So you can find in this area our puzzle maps. So this is what the updated puzzle maps look like here. What I would say you can see also is the branding of Jigsaw 11 to 16 looks very different on the new documentation. So that's also a way that you can, I suppose, very quickly identify what is 2019 and 2025. Yeah, within that area, you can find the updated puzzle maps. Other things that you can find within this area, and I, again, would really you might find this very useful when you're having staff meetings, for example, moving across to the new content. This might be a really nice document to share with your teams to identify, really, if they're looking at particular age groups, a very snapshot understanding as to what they're teaching within each age group. So our snapshot overviews have been updated. Just to remind you, these can be shared with parents when you feel ready. It does identify really very basic from a very, I suppose, high level, what is being taught topic-wise within each age group and within each puzzle as well. Now, we also have our extended snapshot, which goes into a little bit more depth. So there's an age group per page. And again, these might be really useful for you to share, particularly within your age groups and your staff teaching teams. I would recommend these are shared within your staff room as well. Now, this is the main document that as a PSH lead, you're going to be really wanting to have a good look at, which is our RSHE statutory guidance mapping. So this document enlists all of the outcomes that can be found within the 2025 guidance. And then up against it, it highlights, for example, the age group, the piece that you can find that particular outcome. What I would stress is the guidance doesn't necessarily list in terms of outcomes some of those areas such as protected characteristics, but it does state the importance of teaching about those. We will be releasing our protected characteristics mapping document soon. So that will also really enhance your ability to show how you're meeting this particular piece of guidance. Now, I know we may have some schools that are from Wales on the call on our webinar today listening in. We would really want to make it very clear that we are also in line with the Welsh curriculum also, and we will be updating our mapping documents for Welsh schools also in the up and coming. So certainly by the summer term. We can discuss that a little bit more because I know there's a webinar also that I'd like to share with you, particularly for Welsh schools, and we'll talk about that later in today's session. So when it comes down to looking at the nitty-gritty in terms of what has changed, these two particular documents can be found on the portal in that Getting Ready for September 2026 area. So there's one document on the left called Changes Made to the 11 to 16 Programme 2026, a lesson title comparison of 2019 versus 2026. This provides a real high-level overview as to looking at 2019 content and the 2026 content, what lessons have been removed, what lessons are new, and have any of the titles changed. We have highlighted also in this document lessons that have had major adaptations made and also lessons that are totally new. You might also see sometimes that something hasn't been highlighted in bold. If that is, but the titles are different. If that is the case, it's very likely that the lessons are actually the same. But we've just changed the title of the lesson to make it more clear about what that topic is. That is something we picked up a little bit on when we were doing the updates, is that we did feel that maybe some of the titles could be a little bit more specific on what was going to be discussed during that lesson. So we've addressed that, use this as an opportunity to address that in our scheme. In terms of the document on the right, key new content to review in Jigsaw 11 to 16, DfE RSE 2025. This is really useful for teachers in particular that want to have a real snapshot look at which lessons do I need to really review closely. So it doesn't give that level of detail about the whole programme, but what it does is it jumps in on particular year groups and highlights which new lessons are particularly sensitive that we think teachers might want to really review a bit closely before teaching, and also which perhaps lessons are have been moved about or removed that teachers might also want to be aware of. So that's what this particular document does. I know if I was a PSHE lead and I was, I suppose, leading this transition to a new programme, I would find this document really useful for teachers who are teaching in smaller teams to maybe have a look at and I suppose really jump in on that particular content. And this is what that document looks like, or not looks like, but this is some of the information that I've pulled out from this document. So as you can see here, it highlights new content, and we've got a traffic light system going on here, which particularly highlights, for example, which content is particularly sensitive. So you can see there in year 7, there's an FGM lesson now in Changing Me, piece 5. We know that was in the previous scheme, but it was an optional extra lesson is a piece 7 lesson. It's now part of the main scheme. So you might want to review that. Year 9, there is particularly some particular new content in year 9 that also you may want to review. And as you can see, as we go through the year groups, there's actually more sensitive topics as we move through to the older age groups also. So yeah, please make use of that document, and it can be found on the portal in the getting ready for 2026 area. So let's really break it down. And some of the content I'm talking about today can also be found within this document. Year 7, so 11 plus, these are some of the key areas and topics that have been updated. So in Being Me in My World, pieces 4 and 6, we actually see a real focus now on online gaming, online safety, and financial risk. So, we know that our young people are now living in a world where there is that risk of, liaising with strangers online, and also that financial risk as well. So that's what those lessons focus in on. Personal hygiene can also be found within both Healthy Me, but also in our Changing Me puberty lesson, piece 1. There's a focus there on personal hygiene, which follows on, for those of you that are through schools and do primary, it follows on from the topics that may well have been discussed at primary level. Piece 5 in Healthy Me is now a lesson that focuses purely on vaping and nicotine. In terms of our drug education, previously a lot of our drug education lessons focused on several drugs at once, and we found that could be quite a lot of information for particularly our younger age groups. So we have used the rewrite of the 2026 programme as an opportunity to really stage our drug education and really hone in on 1 or 2 drugs at a time rather than lots. So that's what we've done in terms of our drug education. Relationships, piece 4, there's now a bigger focus on authenticity, AI and online influence. And then I know I've already mentioned our FGM lesson, but that is now part of the main programme because it is now a statutory expectation. So again, that is a particular lesson that I think teachers will need to review and make sure they feel comfortable and confident with prior to delivery. And piece 1, now we used to have 2 lessons for piece 1, a 1A and a 1B. The reason we had 2 lessons is because we found some schools were wanting a level of puberty in terms of the level of input on the puberty lesson to be almost at a year 5, year 6 lesson. So a recap essentially. But then we had other schools that, particularly those schools that were already Jigsaw and maybe were doing Jigsaw at primary and then Jigsaw at secondary, they were wanting that next level of exposed extension to that. But what really we were wanting was something in the middle of both of those. So we've rewritten our puberty lesson to be in the middle and sit right in the middle of both of those. And we'd really welcome some feedback on that. Because it was quite a difficult lesson to get and balance out right, particularly for year 7. When you never know what level a young person might be coming at from year 6 or year 5 and what input they might have had in their PSHE lessons prior to coming to secondary school. Year 8, so 12 plus, we can see in Be Me, My World, so pieces 5. This lesson has mostly remained the same, but there is some mention on some slides of civil partnership and also the myth of common law marriage. And then piece 6 has a real focus in on online and offline identity. Dreams and goals, we now have a new lesson on online scams, bank accounts and credit cards. Now our piece 6 lessons, prior to the rewrite, they were often quite short in terms of the amount of activities that were found within them. We have used this rewrite as an opportunity to give some of those lessons a bit more of an actual focus in terms of content. So this is, again, you might see some of our piece 6 lessons being more impactful in terms of the topics that are often being talked about as well than previously. Dreams and goals, piece 6, we have, Healthy Me, piece 5. We have a new lesson on vaping and peer pressure. And then relationships, piece 3 is now a lesson on sextortion and sexting. This lesson used to be at the end of year 7, but we've actually staggered it now onto year 8, particularly because we feel like the content, with it being a sextortion focus, was becoming, I suppose, that little bit more advanced. And then piece 6 is now a lesson adaptation on neurodiversity. So we look at ADHD and autism. This was already a focus of this lesson, but we've rewritten this and had a refocus on this. So please do make yourselves familiar with this content. Now, Changing Me, piece 1, there's an additional slide on sexual harassment. And I'm flagging that because obviously we know that topics such as that are particularly sensitive areas as well. And our piece 4 lesson on pornography, the lesson itself, has generally remained the same. So it was always a focus on how to deal with unwanted messages and images. That was the main focus of this lesson in terms of the angle of pornography. But the starter of this lesson has been updated slightly. So please take a look at the starter and familiarise yourselves with that particular lesson. Now, as you can see, as we're going through to year 9 and year 10 and year 11, for example, we're going to see more new content, because most of the new content that was included in the new 2026 guidance was from quite hard hitting, I would say, in terms of the topics that are being talked about. So you can see here, particularly if we skip straight on to celebrating difference here, we have a lesson, our lesson has been adapted to look at maybe angles such as misogyny angle when we're talking about banter. We also have a new lesson on bias and unconscious bias, and also a new lesson on change makers. Celebrating difference has had a total rejig in terms of the order. We felt that the way we've now ordered some of the lessons and rewritten some of the lessons really makes that particular unit flow really well. Dreams and goals, we have a new lesson on body image and permanent changes. So it has a particular focus on cosmetic procedures. So I, again, would make sure that you are reviewing that lesson and taking a look at that before you deliver. And then we also have new content on deepfakes and AI. We know that's a focus particularly of, keeping up with the world that our young people are in today, and a lesson on harmful content online as well. As you can see, as we're going through, I'm not going to go through all of these because I'm sure you can read some of these yourselves, but the last final bit at the end, Changing Me, there are two particular lessons in Changing Me, piece 3 and 4. One of these lessons focuses on positive masculinity and misogyny. And then another lesson looks at incel culture, misogyny, and online influence. Now, one thing I would state is, if you have children in year 10 or year 11, please take a look and think, okay, are these two lessons that, because now they're in year 10 and 11, they may have missed out on? Feel free to pick these lessons out. They're age 13 plus, which means they are very much appropriate for year 10 and 11 if you think that would be something your school might want to do also. Year 10, again, I've got a lesson here right at the top, piece 3, in Being Me in My World, which looks at topics such as the dark web and harmful online content. Now, it does state in the guidance that schools need to be trained up by, an evidence-informed specialist before delivering topics such as suicide, should they choose to. I want to stress this isn't a lesson that focuses on suicide. It's a lesson that focuses on harmful online content and how to deal with that. So whilst we have areas such as self-harm and suicide listed in that area, it isn't actually a lesson on suicide. But of course, you would need to make sure that you are taking a look at this and maybe being aware of some of the needs from your students and what might be sensitive to them prior to delivery. So dangers of scamming when sharing information is also found in piece 5. And then piece 6, we have a brand new lesson on AI chatbots as well. We have, moving through, we have actually for Healthy Me had quite a rejig in terms of what is covered within certain lessons. So you might have found previously that there might have been a lesson on, for example, certain types of cancer, but relating to fertility. We've actually picked and moved quite a bit of our content around within this unit, so please do take a look. Relationships, there's a particular focus in pieces 4 and 5 on areas such as strangulation, sexual harassment, upskirting and stalking. So again, as staff, you might want to be thinking about how you're going to open those conversations within your classroom, and also as a PSHE lead, how are you going to support your teachers to make sure they feel particularly confident walking into the classroom to just talking about some of these particular topics. And then there is piece 2 and 3. We did already have a lesson on personal safety within the scheme, but we now have 2. We've expanded that even further. And one of those lessons has particular focus on spiking as well when relating to personal safety. And then finally, piece 5 in year 10, we have a new lesson on virginity testing and hymenoplasty, which can be found. So again, please do take a look at this lesson prior to delivery, because it is a lesson that I do think teachers will need to be clued up on before entering into a classroom. And then year 11, so 15 plus. Essentially, we have got a new lesson on gaming and gambling in piece 4. We also have in piece 3 on Healthy Me, a new lesson on fertility. And this focuses on PCOS, heavy periods, endometriosis, and infertility in men and women. So this was an area on the 2026 guidance that was particularly expanded upon. We also have 2 lessons now on pregnancy. So, this really allows us to look at what the options are if you're pregnant, but also the health aspect of, pregnancy, how health aspects relating to before and during and after pregnancy as well. And then finally, our relationships lesson, piece 4. This lesson now has a specific focus on domestic abuse, and there have been significant adaptations made to these lessons as well, that lesson as well. So these are generally the main changes that I would say can be found within each year group. What I think PSHE leads are going to find useful is I intend on sharing these slides with you with some very detailed notes so that you are in a position to, for those that are Jigsaw schools, if you want to perhaps use these within a presentation in your school, this is then going to be available to you within the next couple of weeks. So this particular document here, implementing the 2025 RSHE guidance, we've produced for you a step-by-step guide for SLT and subject leads of PSHE. This document, again, I believe Eleni is going to share in the chat with us. So you should be able to download this, but it can also be found on the portal. All of the links, when you click on the ones that are underlined, they all take you directly to areas either on the portal, of course, if you're logged in, or to a webinar, particularly looking at particular templates, documents, or webinar links. So please make use of this. We're hoping it's going to be very useful for schools to really break down the transition and the period between now and September and getting ready for 2026. And I'm going to break this down and have a look at this with you today. So to begin with, we have, first of all, the first step that you're going to have on this document is, on your step-by-step guide, is review curriculum compliance. So this is what you're doing today, essentially. So the webinar that you're on today is going to be recorded. I would suggest you provide that, you share that recording with your schools, or you point them in the right direction on the portal. And then obviously, as I've mentioned before, we also have the 2 key documents that are going to be available to schools to break down what those changes are. What I would state is these documents don't go into the level of detail of what has changed in every single lesson. If we were to produce something like that, it would be quite an overwhelming document in terms of length and the detail, because 80% of the scheme has had updates made to it. So these documents are really there to support teachers, not give them that sense of overwhelm, and really hone in on those particular areas that they are going to support teachers. Now, I'm also going to signpost to this particular document we've also created, which can be found on the portal too. So once you've reviewed, I suppose, the content, and you're happy with the content, you then need to consider updating policies and consultation as well. So this document here is essentially a step-by-step guide to breaking that down also. So give yourself some time, really think about, okay, how are we going to do this in the way that's really going to support our school community and our parents and our governors and our staff, and also, make sure that you're taking them on that journey with you. And within this document, you can find 5 key steps. So initially, review your starting point. So audit current policy and practice against the guidance. What do you already have in school? Are there areas that you could maybe adapt and enhance? Or is it something you need to start afresh from? Consider that approach. Number 2, meet with your staff and governors. So build shared understanding before wider consultation as well. Then draft or update your policy. And I'm going to be sharing with you some documents that are going to support you with that process today. Ensuring it meets all the statutory requirements as well. Now, the new DfE guidance did state what those requirements were, and were quite clear. And we do have some webinars coming up in the future that are going to support you with ensuring it meets all the statutory requirements as well. Engage parents and carers and pupils. So consult, share materials, gather feedback, and then finalise and communicate. So, once you've gained that feedback, make sure that you are publishing and informing parents with your steps forward. And all of this process can be set out in our detailed guide to policy review and consultation document. And if you haven't done so, make sure that you're always referring back to the original guidance. There's a lot of information out there at the minute regarding the RSHE 2026, but make sure you're always referring back to the original document when it comes to a starting point, essentially. Okay, so the next couple of slides that I'm going to be looking at are very much going to be pointing in the direction of, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is where how we can help you with it. So this is, in terms of updating our policies, we do have a webinar in March, which is going to be essentially looking at getting your policy right and bringing parents and governors on board. So please feel free to sign up for that webinar. It will, of course, be recorded as well for those that are Jigsaw schools also. We have produced a template, a PSHE and RSHE policy template for schools, which is a Word document which can be amended and edited to suit your school setting. So if you are from a total starting from scratch point, or you just want to make sure and align your previous policy with one that meets the statutory expectations, take a look at this as perhaps a starting point. And we also have a review checklist. So we have, for those schools that have a strong policy in place already and just need to make minor adjustments to it, we have a checklist to ensure that your policy does meet those statutory requirements. And of course, we also have other policies that you may need to review, such as your safeguarding policy, behaviour policy, and also making sure it's in line with other documentation that the government have released, such as the KCIE as well. Now, the next thing that you will need to consider is prioritising inclusion and SEND accessibility. So we know that some schools adapt our slides to suit their school setting or to suit particular age groups. So consider any adaptations that you've made to the previous programme that you might want to bring across to the 2026 programme. So use this time between now and September to consider the best route through with that and the way to bring those changes across. If you are a SEND school, we have a lovely community of SEND schools, and we have network meetings also planned throughout the year. So please do get in touch if you'd like to join some of those SEND network meetings. They do very much inform a lot of our next steps sometimes with things, and particularly with documentation. And we do have the PSHE, RSHE SEND mapping document for 11 to 16. That is currently being updated. So keep an eye out for that, as we'll be releasing that as soon as possible. So within the spring term, should I say. Okay, so we do, in terms of government engagement and consultation, we did create a recorded webinar previously in the year about what the RSHE changes are and what your school needs to know. And we've produced this webinar so that you can share this with your governors and take them, really explain what those updates are in terms of the RSHE 2026 guidance. So do utilise that and share that amongst your governors. But we also have, viewing back to that policy and consultation document we've highlighted, that also is there to support you in understanding how best to consult with your governors as well. So the DfE, new DfE guidance made it very clear that they wanted schools to be very open and transparent when informing parents about areas such as sensitive topics within RSHE, the actual materials and lesson content that they were also teaching their children. And it's important that we are sharing that with our parents as well. So the Jigsaw programme and whole school style approach, we should be sharing that and explaining that to our parents. And we, of course, we do have ways of sharing our materials, such as the parent portal as well. Now, I'll be going to into this in a bit more depth during my webinar on 4th of March. But as a starting point, there is a new RSHE Guidance What Parents Need to Know document that DfE produced at the same time as just before it released the RSHE Guidance itself. And I do feel it was very well written in terms of really explaining what those changes are and why. Some of the topics that have been included in the 2026 guidance are quite hard hitting, but this really breaks down why that is, why we've included that within the guidance. It's also very important that at the same time as you're reviewing your policies, you're also reviewing your right to withdraw procedures in the school. Now, we have produced a sex education in Jigsaw 1116 and right to withdraw document, which is an updated version of the 2019 version. This is available for the schools to utilise. What this document does is it provides Jigsaw's definition of sex education, and based on that definition, it highlights which lessons we would deem as sex education, i.e. which lessons we would deem a parent can withdraw from. What's very important to highlight here, though, is the DfE haven't highlighted what they would define as sex education. They have left it for schools to define, and they need to, and schools also must define that within their policies also. So whilst this is Jigsaw's definition, it's really important schools read this and decide, do they agree with our definition? And if not, they need to make sure they're adapting this based on their own definition of sex education, and then also review those lessons themselves, because it is quite a subjective topic at times. Some areas are not black and white, and some areas in the scheme are particularly grey at times. So please take note of that document, but also make sure you review it thoroughly and decide if you agree with it. Now, in terms of consulting with parents, we are currently in the process of creating some slides that PSHE leads can use as a consultation process with parents, particularly looking at the RSHE 2026 guidance, but also looking at sex education as well. The slides being produced will have very detailed notes and guidance for PSHE leads to use, but there'll also be, alongside it, a recorded demonstration to support PSHE leads when preparing for the delivery. So we have a lovely Jigsaw expert who has been essentially produced a webinar, and also has got some a recording of this and the way she would deliver that as well. Alongside that, we're going to be releasing some updated parent leaflets as well that will support that particular process. Now, moving forward, this is a particular time where, as PSHE leads and SSLT, you'll need to be considering how you're going to train and upskill your staff ready for this move across to the new guidance. So it's important that you're providing whole staff CPTs so that teachers can be confident with the new materials and the new lesson content. They're confident in handling those particularly sensitive questions and content that might come up. Align with teaching school ethos and provide real-life context and authentic experiences. Now, at this time, the government have highlighted that there is going to be some funding available for CPD in this area, but they haven't necessarily identified the process of that, or how much that might be, and how it can be. Well, essentially, we don't know an awful lot about what that looks like at this moment in time. However, what we would like to also highlight is, for those schools that are Jigsaw and non-Jigsaw schools, both, we do have some opportunities here that are also free and already available to you. So we know that schools are going to be wanting to look out for opportunities that are possibly more face-to-face or bespoke at times. But as a starting point, we do have a knowledge hub on our website. And in that, we have articles such as this one here I can see on how to tackle misogyny. And we also have some recorded webinars as well, and our upcoming webinars too. So please do keep a very close eye on that, because we do know that funding for things like this at times can be very tight. So we're looking at ways to support our schools to help them tackle this area and really make sure their staff and teaching staff feel really confident, ready for September. So these are some examples on the community areas. For those that are Jigsaw schools, in the community area of the Jigsaw, we do have an optimise and training area. There are already some previous webinars on there. I've just picked out 2 here, as you can see, of some experts in these areas. And we're going to be adding to this area throughout between now and September as well. So I know our training lead at the minute is very busy, having a look, identifying what key areas in the guidance our secondary schools going to need support with, and making sure that we're producing webinars that particularly tackle those areas. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too long. I'm very conscious of time a little bit, but we're looking at, this is one thing that all of these topics have in common is, making sure that our teachers have the skills to manage this particularly sensitive PSHE content. We know that the new content that has been included is on majority of occasions particularly sensitive, or particularly possibly for some students could be quite triggering in some occasions. So we know that, for example, we use the phrase P's. So P to begin with is prepare. So using the time as we are doing today to make sure that teachers have got time to prepare for this and have a look at the materials. The reason why we've released our programme so early is because we really wanted teachers to have time to take a good look at what's there and have some time to really make themselves familiar and feel confident in what they're delivering in September. So we have got time. You have got time now, several months, to really start to transition and become very familiar with and confident in what you're delivering. The environment. So we have got obviously a Jigsaw charter at the beginning of each lesson. Consider whether certain lessons might need to have adapting to have maybe more areas or points put on the charter. Consider whether as a school you want your own charter rather than Jigsaw's. Do you want your own bespoke school charter for PSHE, for example? And also just make sure that you're really clarifying those expectations around asking questions as well. Okay, and linking that to your policy too. It makes it very clear in the new RSHE guidance that part of the policy also needs to also highlight how to deal with sensitive questions, and the process surrounding that. So make sure that your policies are in line with that, and make sure your staff are very clear on how to deal with those maybe trickier questions at times as well. And then finally, signpost support. So, make it clear to your teachers that you don't need to have all the answers. I think PSHE and RSHE are one of those, the reason why they're particularly difficult at times, and some teachers might find particularly, overwhelmed with teaching, is because there's a lot of information there and there's a lot of areas you need to be experts in. And it's important to highlight you don't need to be the expert. Okay, so make sure that staff are very aware of the sources and support that's available, both internally and externally, particularly when teaching those particularly difficult topics. And also making sure that they follow up in line with the safeguarding policies too. So it's very important that you're making this with your staff very clear what the procedures are and supporting them also with delivering those particularly sensitive topics. So some of our documentation is currently still being updated, and just going to highlight to you here some of those documents that are not on the portal but that will be coming soon. So that area which is on the portal, which I highlighted at the beginning, getting ready for September 2026, we'll be dropping these in as they become available. And we're already making quite a good dink in some of these particular documents, so please do keep an eye out. We will be also listing and highlighting in our What's New email to schools when documentation becomes available. If you don't receive our What's New email, please do get in touch with school support. There's an email address at the end, because it may well be that we don't have your most up-to-date PSHE lead email address. So please do get in contact if you don't receive those. And I mentioned at the beginning that there will be some webinars coming up which will support you in certain areas, getting ready for September. These are some key dates that we wanted to highlight to you. There will be, of course, more. So keep an eye out on social channels and our monthly What's New email, because we are going to be releasing some more that are on specific topics as well relating to the new guidance. But yeah, as you can see here, we have a network meeting next week. We also have a SEND network meeting in March. And that particular one that I want to highlight is the 4th of March on PSHE and RSHE, getting your policy right and bringing parents and governors on board. That's our next particular one. I did also highlight or mention previously that Adam, our Welsh consultant for 11-16, is also going to be delivering a webinar in April on for Welsh schools on guiding you through the new content and making sure you know what documentation is available and how it aligns also. Okay, so just as a little takeaway, essentially it might feel like there's an awful lot of information today, but it's actually, if you really break it down, you're very much closer than you think. most of what you already teach meets new requirements. So don't feel necessarily overwhelmed by the new content there. It is, really advancing on what was already there as a basis. Don't rush. So make sure you're putting all the groundwork in before you move across to the new content, making sure that everybody in your school feels confident, that you've provided those opportunities for CPD, you've provided those opportunities for consultation, and also your policies are in line as well and ready. Everything you need to get started is on the portal. So the content is updated, the guidance documents are updated, and the support of the resources are all there for you as a starting point. Of course, we're going to be gradually adding into that area, but the main areas that you need and the main documents that you need to get started are all available there on the portal at the moment. So please do get in touch if you have any further questions. Also take a look at our Knowledge Hub, which can be found on our website or in the community area as well. And this webinar today has been recorded. So again, if you want to share it with your teams, please feel free to do so. And thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bethan. As you said, a lot of information there and a lot of documents to go away and take a look at as well. But hopefully everyone feels clear about what is available for you all, and how to get in contact with us as well through school support if there's anything more that we can do. We've got 2 questions so far. So one of which you have answered in the process, well, part of it you've answered already. But Samantha asked, are mapping documents for British Values, SMSC, and PSHE Association benchmarks available? I know you mentioned the first of those that's coming, and it's coming very soon because it's in draft, isn't it? So it's
that's a good question for us as a Jigsaw as well. We are very close to releasing our British Values and our SMSC one. We have a separate document on emotional literacy because it used to be all in one, but we've actually segmented emotional literacy as a separate document. But you asked also about the PSHE Association. We have it on our list, but we weren't sure how many schools were still using that to map against. But if that is something that schools are finding useful, please do say, because we have it on the list, but it wasn't necessarily a high priority one because we weren't sure how many schools were using it. But whoever did write that, if that is something that
it was Samantha. So it sounds like because she's asking, we
can certainly approach that, and I might take your contact details and just get in touch with you surrounding the PSHE Association one.
Great, thank you. We've got a name so we can pick that up. Second question was from James, which is an FGM question. He's saying, from my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, FGM must be covered by the end of Key Stage 3. I note that it is taught in Year 7 as part of the Jigsaw scheme. Can I please ask, why do you recommend teaching FGM in Year 7 as opposed to Year 8 or Year 9? In a previous school I've worked in, there have been some parents who have challenged the teaching of FGM in Year 7. Any advice would be appreciated. Thanks.
So our FGM lessons are evidence informed. So we actually have to, when you look at the evidence as to when does FGM happen, it often happens from even younger than Year 7. So it could be argued, is it even too late in some schools? We know some primary schools teach it. So it's very much, I'm happy to, again, pick this up offline if you do have any parents that do challenge it. Again, if you think for your particular, FGM is one of those topics where if you feel for your particular school, it isn't necessarily something that you need to pick up in Year 7. You have got the flexibility as a school to move things around. So if you as a school don't think, actually, I don't think that's going to be suitable for my school setup, you can move lessons around if you wish to. The reason why we've chosen Year 7 is, for some schools, by Year 9, it's too late. And those students that may have been affected by FGM, that support is not that support and that safeguarding isn't in place. So from a safeguarding perspective, we've gone from, what does the evidence tell us? When does FGM happen, mostly, or from? But also we understand for some schools, that might not be necessarily the case or the issue within a school that they have. So feel free to move things around if you wish to, though, as well.
Thanks, Beth. I think that's really clear. Yeah, it's about the evidence base around safeguarding. Yeah, about keeping children safe ultimately, isn't it? But thanks for your question, James, and thanks for your Samantha as well. There are no more questions in the chat at this point in time. Oh, final one. Is there a 3 to 11 implementing the 2025 RSHE guidance document, please, similar to the one shared above? I don't recall it being shared in yesterday's webinar. So there are similar documents, they just look a little bit different. So there's a mapping document which demonstrates all of the changes that have been made across the programme. I know that Sarah is actually on this call, so maybe she can dig out the link, or I mean, it will be again on that Get Ready for September, but in the primary section. James, we've got your name as well, so Sarah can pop you an email supporting you with that. Samantha says, is Jigsaw still going to be endorsed by NCFE? We currently run the qualification and use Jigsaw to meet those standards.
We haven't got any plans to not. So the actual, even though it's been updated, the programme is in line with the 2020, with the current NCFE. Of course, we are awaiting to see what the NCFE, whether they're going to change their standards. We don't know that information, to be quite honest, at the moment. So we're going to be, liaising with them over that. But currently, as it stands, the information we have, the booklets remain the same, and the programme remains in line with the booklets. There is one lesson in I think it's year 7, and I'm going to put this on the portal soon and make it quite clear. There's one lesson in year 7 in dreams and goals, I believe, where we used to have there was a lesson on first aid as a 7th lesson. I'm going to put that in our Jigsaw Plus area for those that are NCFE, so they can pull that out to meet that standard should they wish to. But aside from that, the whole programme remains in line. The booklets are the same. And of course, if the NCFE release updated standards, we'll address that as we come to that.
Fab. Sarah's just sent a link with the RSHE policy and consultation. Sarah, I don't know if you're able to add. No, I think that the one that they were asking for was
step by step success.
This. No, not the step by step. Oh. Maybe it is that one. That's not the one that I had in my mind when I read that question. So James, sorry if I've overcomplicated. Did you mean the step-by-step document, or did you mean the one that sort of identifies the differences between the two programs? That's what I read. So let's just, yeah, if you can, if you're still here and you can clarify that in the chat, that'd be great. Have the booklets been updated now? When I checked a few weeks ago, they weren't. That's from Heather.
No, Heather, it's a big job. I'm trying to fluff that one up. The booklets are quite a big job. So we will have it ready by, we're aiming for like worst case scenario June, hopefully way before that. But it's on my list as of next week, actually, to start picking that up and keep wading through those. But we know that is something we know schools will want before September, or even before the end of the summer term, so they can print them off, etc., those that utilise it. But it's not a small job, so it will be there, but it's going to take us a bit of time.
Yes, so we've started it, but yeah, it's in process, isn't it? We will get them done. We do know how valuable they are, so we are working as quickly as we can to get those sorted.
Heather, if you have any feedback on those, now's the time to say, because now's the time we're changing things. So if you have any feedback on the booklets, please do feel free to email in.
Yeah, what you'd like more differently, for sure. If it was the Steps to Success document, then yeah, Heather, please do pass them on. If James and Anna, if you're both talking about the Steps to Success document, we don't have that for primary as yet, because we've got a range of other documents and obviously the presentation that was shared yesterday, but it is something that Sarah and I are looking at. So good to know that that's been helpful, and we'll try and roll that out for 3 to 11 as well. Yeah, Heather, please do anything you find pop it in an email to schoolsupport@jigsawedutiongroup.com, and that will get forwarded to Bethan, and we can implement those changes. Hopefully we'll pick them up anyway through re-looking at them. It's amazing what you find when you re-look at a document, isn't it? When at the time you kind of I think your eyesight goes like hazy because you just staring at it for so long. So yeah, any final questions before we finish? Please do pop it in the chat. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you all here, and really hope you feel more clued up and prepared. Of course, do get in contact if there's anything else we can do. And yeah, thank you, Bethan.
Thank you.